Hello and welcome to the Horti-Culturalists. I'm Stephen Ryan.
And I'm Matthew Lucas, in a little bit of heaven, but we'll get to that. We do post every week on a Friday, so hit subscribe if you want to follow our continuing adventures, and do hit the thumbs up button if you like this video. Stephen, where are we? Because I'm in heaven.
All right, we're at Tonkin's Bulbs and Perennials.
Yes.
In the Dandenong Ranges outside of Melbourne. And today we're going to look at all of those fantastic woodland plants that give the spring garden its verve and its beauty.
Oh, I cannot wait. And Tonkin's here is a specialist grower of rare and unusual woodland perennials. So I think without further ado, we should go and meet
Jane.
It was the Tonkin of Tonkin's Rare Plants and Bulbs. Let's go.
All right, good idea.
Jane Tonkin of Tonkin's Bulbs and Perennials. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome, Matthew. Thank you for being here.
I'm in heaven. Stephen knows you and this place backwards, but
Yeah, I'm almost blasé about it. Jane and I go way back.
I've never been here. It's so exciting.
So at least it's new and exciting for you. Stephen's old hat.
There you go.
Yeah. I can pretend to be excited.
Yeah, good.
So perhaps for our viewers, could you just give us an overview? What is it that you specialise in? What's your passion?
My passion is woodlanders from lots of different places around the world.
Yep.
So sort of North America and Asia through the Himalaya and all those sort of yummy places where you find some of these fantastic things that like a cooler climate and afternoon shade. That typical woodland situation.
Sounds like heaven.
All right, Jane, given that we live in Australia, you would seem to be heading off in a very interesting direction compared to what most Australians can do.
Look, yes, I tend to push the boundaries quite a lot on what I think I can grow, but that's the fun of it too.
Yep.
Being able to grow something that is spectacular and needs the cooler climate. So a lot of our things will go through Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania, a little bit up through New South Wales, Blue Mountains particularly, etc. But anywhere further north at these things.
Probably Toowoomba.
Yeah,
You could
we've
probably
maybe push a few things, but we do have sunny, loving stuff that for those states anyway. It's just these sort of woodland yummies that it's more.
But I will point out though that in Melbourne, where I am, which is warmer than where Stephen's nursery is and where yours is, a lot of these things will happily grow in the city.
Yeah.
In a shady woodlandy garden.
I've got friends in Footscray that have created their own little microclimate with trees and things to be able to grow this sort of stuff as well. So it's not that you can't do it.
Yep.
It's that you need to look where something's from and try and adapt to the situation.
And isn't half of the fun growing something that you're told that you can't grow and proving all the pundits wrong?
Well, that's exactly right.
Well, maybe what we should do is just go through some of your favourite groups of plants and just look at where they're from, how you grow them, and recommendations for that.
Great. Yep.
Let's go.
All right, Jane, we must be standing amongst some of your all-time favourites amongst the thousands of all-time favourites that you have. And I have to say, this is a genus that really gets me excited.
Well, this is good. See?
Yeah.
And you said you weren't going to get excited.
Oh, yeah, I'll still get excited. So the Podophyllums, I think, have to be one of the creme de la creme of foliage perennials for the woodland.
Definitely, and architecturally beautiful as well. It's not about the flowers, it's about the foliage on these.
Well, the flowers are fun though when they get them. They're just starting to form.
Little one coming under
they're
there.
just starting to form in there, but they tend to hide. But I have to say, I walked into the shade house here, and that caught my attention. So tell me about that one, because I haven't got it.
That's Podophyllum delavayi cross versipelle. So it's a hybrid between two species, and the delavayi gives it more of that fully serrated edge, and the versipelle gives it the colour and stuff too. So
wonderful looking plant.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely fabulous.
Yeah, so where's mine?
Well, be nice.
I will. You never know. Of course, this one here is another probably far better known.
Yes, this one's Spotty Dotty, which has been in the trade for quite some time now. And the leaves just keep getting bigger and bigger each year, depending whether you divide your plant or not. Relatively easy in care. When they're growing like this, they need regular moisture over the summer, but they're dormant over the winter, which is great. And ours just stay out all winter in their pots.
So they don't have to be treated in any specific way.
No, you don't have to knock
dormancy.
them out and keep them dry or anything. They really don't like that. So they just stay out here all winter. I usually repot because of the fact that I'm trying to increase for a commercial
so
scale.
You're dividing and what have you.
But you could just top dress your pot with some of those really yummy, sort of smelly, manure-y sort of fertilisers, which they absolutely love.
Oh, yes.
The more you feed, the more your podophyllums will love you.
Yeah, and they'll get, and I mean the point is to have big, isn't it?
Yeah.
You don't want a squeeny little podophyllum.
No,
so
no.
yeah, something that's got huge big leaves is fantastic.
Yeah, and they sort of almost have this velvety texture to them when you find whenever anyone comes and they see they have to touch it. It's all this sort of tactile plant.
That one sort of almost has a hologram look about it. The leaves look like they're sort of three-dimensional. It's really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
And we've certainly got another one here, which
So
is
that's straight delavayi.
and that's a lesser seen one around the traps. You don't see that one around so much.
And it will get bigger too. I haven't had that for as long either, but it will extend and get those bigger leaves eventually.
Yep.
I should take my own advice and feed it more.
Yes, well, there you go. Now, they're three really interesting ones, but there's one that I'm very fond of up here. So why don't we go up and have a look at this one?
Yep.
I have to say, as much as I love some of the marbled leafed ones, this one with its incredibly glossy leaf, I find really appealing, and of course its leaves get lovely and big as well. So here we have Podophyllum pleianthum.
Yes.
And we can actually show flowers on this one.
In here.
So there we have some of the blooms on it. They're this strange sort of mahogany colour almost. They have a rather interesting aroma.
I suppose it's probably best described as 15-year-old boys' socks.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I know exactly where you're going.
But a lot of these things you're not growing for the scent. You're growing it for these amazingly fabulous leaves that are kind of the size of our heads here, Stephen. And as you said, they do get a lot bigger as the plants get bigger. So and the bigger the pot, the bigger it will get too.
And they do make particularly good pot plants.
They do. And when they're dormant over the winter, you can shift your pot.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of these things that you're growing for a foliage type thing do really well in pots because you can enjoy them when they're at their prime like this.
And they're so sculptural that, you know, a really classy pot with a plant like this makes a wonderful feature.
And they
so why not?
last for a long time. Like when they first come through the ground, it's like this big umbrella erupting. So from woe to go, you have this amazing sort of structurally changing plant, which makes it a lot sort of different in someone's garden. So.
So pot culture can be more or less permanent. You just need to divide them every so often if they get too crowded. I guess the other thing that we just should point out to people is the amount of light or shade that they need.
Yeah, afternoon shade definitely. Look, I've known pleianthum to take full sun, but it just burns, and that's just a waste of the plant, and it's not doing it justice, and then it won't do you justice. No. So,
well, there's no point in having a
shade,
scruffy one.
Yeah.
It's a bit like having hostas that have been attacked by snails. And then they look like sort of ripped paper doilies.
But I don't seem to have any issues with snails and slugs with this one in particular. Some of the other fancier leafed ones that we were looking at, snails and slugs, can be a little bit of an issue too, so it might be something that you need to keep in mind.
Keep on top of. But they are wonderful and they just look so glossy and gorgeous. All right, so we've moved from Asia to North America and we're now looking at the North American representative of the podophyllums. And so
this is peltatum.
Peltatum. So flower buds starting to form.
Underneath there,
Yes,
beautiful.
like most of the genus does. Little white numbers from memory.
They certainly are, and it's actually a really, really beautiful snow white flower. The first time I saw it, it had sort of sun shining in underneath the leaves, and I was like, oh, what's that? And instantly fell in love because it has this beautiful gold boss of anthers in the middle full of pollen. But commonly called the Mayapple in North America.
I was going to say that because they eat the fruit.
They do. Okay, so it has this beautiful sort of walnut-shaped fruit when it's finished flowering, and between it being yellow and green, so it starts off this greeny colour, but once it goes yellow you can eat it, but you can't when it's green. Jane's really not recommending that anybody give it a go, but when you squash the pods to get seed out, they have this smell a bit like a banana passion fruit. So you can see why people would probably give it a go, but please don't, just in case, because there is a time when it's not really healthy for you.
Yes, you need to know what you're doing. It's like collecting toadstools. You need to know which ones you can eat and which ones you can't. But it's a lovely plant, and I find in my own garden that this one actually tends to romp a little bit, so you end up with quite a nice drift of it.
Because its natural thing is from a rhizome, so which means that it's got little fingers that just keep putting out a new growth. Whereas a lot of the Asian forms, it's more of a compact rhizome that doesn't sort of spread.
Yeah,
just
so
gets bigger.
This one could be quite a useful ephemeral ground cover in a moistish spot in the garden somewhere.
If you can get it to do that, well,
That's
great.
it's doing it in my garden, so I'm managing, but then I'm good at things, so it doesn't matter.
And again, it will grow in your garden with some afternoon shade and things, but it will do well in a pot too. And like the others, just give them some of those yummy, smelly foods and things, because they tend to do a lot better if you do.
Exactly. So look after them, and they'll look after you.
Yes.
I haven't visited any of these things in the wild, and I'm assuming you possibly haven't either,
No,
Jane.
I'm not that lucky. But
the habitat that most of these plants would grow in
is pretty much those deciduous forests and things where it's got that dappled afternoon shade and things. And this one particularly probably more on the moist situation. And those open meadows, where things like the brodeas and those sort of things grow in the open meadows. These are towards the edge of those meadows and into the bushland where they love it.
So you treat them in much the same as you would most woodlandy-esque plants.
Definitely, yes. They're actually relatively easy to grow.
Jane, what is this that caught my eye? Look at those fabulous leaves.
Isn't it yummy? It's a Jeffersonia.
Not named after the president.
Definitely.
So it's North American.
So North American, well done. See, Matthew, you are learning very quickly.
There may have been a prompt off camera from Mr. Ryan, but anyway.
No, we won't give him credit for that.
The leaves are stunning.
It's all about the leaves on
I was going to say
one.
the flowers are obviously gorgeous, but not.
It has this tiny little white flower that will sit down in amongst the foliage eventually. But it's about these little dancing butterflies that look great.
And so how long will you have this foliage for till it dies down?
It will stay with us till about the end of November. So it's
late spring.
Yes.
Southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere.
So it's been up for about a month now. So you still get your sort of 2 or 3 months out of these things that are grown for their foliage and stuff too. So
But the bigger question then, looking at all these amazing things, how did you get into this trade?
Well, I think it's in the blood.
I was going to say, passionate about ephemerals.
My father started his love of plants by poring over RHS journals and seed catalogues and things, all well before the internet and all those good things that we can do now. And he started off growing these similar sort of things that love that woodland situation, sort of fritillarias, erythroniums, and into some of the sunnier stuff like crocus and things. But as I've got older, I've discovered that this is where my passion lies in growing the woodland stuff. A, because some of it can be quite difficult. And B, I think it is a lot about the foliage and not necessarily the flowers, or it is a combination of both that gets you in.
So you took over the family business essentially?
Yes.
Well done. Now I'm with the cunning brilliance of technology going to swing the camera this way and just look at this plant here.
So this is Dodecatheon clevelandii var insulare. It has this amazingly beautiful name for an amazingly beautiful plant.
Look at that.
And before anyone gets a little stressed with Jane, they are now in the Primula family, but I just refuse to acknowledge that because I think
you don't want to change your labels.
I just think they need their own genus. They are just so magic. So commonly called shooting stars.
I would say, as a complete and rank amateur, the leaves look very much like a primula. Sorry. Stephen Ryan is laughing off camera.
Stephen's laughing in the background at my face, but that's okay. Yes, maybe they do look a little bit like a primula foliage.
But they're not.
But no, they're not. So anyway, native to North America as well. So same as that Jeffersonia and the Podophyllum, peltatum.
Dappled woodlight.
But this one needs to be sort of a lot moister. So you'll probably find it by the rivers and things in the more moist areas of North America. You do have to watch the moisture levels of all sorts of primulas and things if you are growing them in pots. They do tend to dry out a lot. A lot of people get home from work and their primula's just gone all sad. The worst thing you can do is actually then touch the foliage. Just because it then damages the cells that are already under stress. Your primula needs to go into immediate little water bath and just let it do its thing. By the next morning it will be up and going again, and just try not to forget to give it some more water before you go to work.
This is beautiful. Now, this is a massive specimen. Oh, how many plants are in there?
There's about a dozen in that pot, so there's going to be some more stems coming. They're just coming now, and as you can see, there's quite a lot of buds in the top.
Yeah.
So when it's fully open, the head is quite large and impressive, but it is all about that colour and perfect.
It's stunning because it is
Yeah.
an amazing flower.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, let's talk vulgar commerce.
Yeah.
We'll put the link to your website below. So you sell all these things online twice a year.
So summer, autumn, and then winter, early spring.
That's right. So twice a year. So anyone in Australia, we'll put the link below. And
because we can send to Tassie and WA as well, but I'm sorry, can't send overseas. But,
there you go. And most of, well, I don't think any Australian growers can, unfortunately.
Don't think we do.
So all our North American viewers, though, you'll be able to find these from specialist nurseries and also in Britain from specialist nurseries.
Yep.
Talking of primulas, though, which this isn't, did I not see one over there?
You did. Let's go and have a look at that
Let's have a look.
Yep.
So Jane, this is a primula, though.
It is. This is in the true Primula family. Look, I must admit, if they're shifting the Dodecatheon in, we do have to come to terms with that. But this is...
Can I just say, the whole taxonomy thing, I mean, Stephen goes through this often, and I just glaze over because it's too complicated. I understand the reasoning, I understand the science, but then I disconnect because I'm not interested in it. It's just annoying. And for you, wouldn't you have to reprint your catalogues, your labels?
You have to reprint all the labels and things like that. Because it's nice to be able to sell something under its true name. That's a good start to business.
And important. Anyway, enough of that.
True Primula. This one is Primula veris. So it's native to the northern Europe. So those open, moist, sort of woodlandy type situation, often called the cowslip Primula. So it does need a lot of moisture while it's growing. This is one of those ones that, you know, if I forget to give it a drink every day, I will come out and it's all gone limp and things. So primulas, yes, basically in a boggy area or around the edge of your pond is perfect if they're in the ground. But in a pot, most of them will need that little tray of water to be able to suck up moisture during the day.
And how long is the flowering season?
These have been flowering for over a month now, just starting to wane off a little bit, but there's new stems coming
up.
So another month or two and they'll have done their thing, but the foliage will stay around for quite some time after that too. They're dormant over the winter.
I was going to say, so it's a herbaceous perennial.
Yep, so that's May, sort of June, July here in Australia.
Southern Hemisphere,
But well worth it for the colour.
Yes.
It just glows, and especially on a fairly overcast day today, and it just stands out beautifully.
It really does. It pings.
Yeah.
Well, on to the next.
Yes, next one.
All right, so what is before us now?
Well, I have to say this is a group of plants that I love because most of them are pretty tough and they're sort of really classical woodland plants.
Yeah, and they are?
And they are the Solomon seals.
Polygonatum.
Polygonatum.
Yes. They're a lot more diverse than we've ever thought until recently. There's lots of new species and even selections coming on board, and I don't find them hard. I find them actually almost embarrassingly easy, most of them.
Some of them are. Like if anyone knows the normal Solomon seal, that can sort of be a bit thuggish occasionally and things. A lot of these special ones aren't. Sometimes you wish they were.
Yes, exactly.
And what is this one particularly?
So this is odoratum var pluriflorum. So it's very, very similar to your normal Solomon seal that people may have, but it has more bells out of each leaf axis than the general one, and a stronger perfume, even though the normal Solomon seal smells divine as well, and very attractive to bees in your garden and things like that. So
when these open, what will the colour be?
They're cream and green. It's basically a lime green on the flower with that darker green tip.
And I have to say, the classical forms of Solomon seal, 3 stems in a vase and you're an expert floral artiste because they look so elegant.
Yes.
It's just a wonderful plant, and they do make actually very good cut flowers.
And where are they from?
Well, depending on which species you get in the genus, there is quite a few. A lot of these ones that look similar to your normal Solomon seal are from North America and through Europe. Whereas a lot of the other rarer, more unusual, different coloured ones, Matthew, are from Asia.
And are they behind us?
There's some behind us.
Let's turn around and have a look.
Well, I have to say, Jane, as much as I love the normal Solomon seals, you've got some fantastic ones here, mainly by the looks of Asian origin.
Yes, a lot of the ones that have different coloured flowers and things and different leaf structures and that are endemic to Asia.
Yeah.
And this one in front of us is no exception. It's called kingianum, so the king of all Solomon seals.
Well, it's certainly one of the tallest when it gets going.
And it's nowhere near where it's going to get to. It's only just starting to form these red and green beautiful buds, which will be over an inch long once they're fully developed. And this will get up 2 or 3 metres if it's allowed.
And it's interesting because it's also a tendril producing
so the
Solomon seal.
little tendrils.
It holds itself up when it's growing through the thickets wherever it is.
It basically comes from those sort of rhododendron wooded forests and things where it's got a reach for light, and those tendrils help hold it up. Otherwise, it just blows over.
Which is one of the issues with growing it in gardens. Yes, I've had mine snap and drop over.
Yeah, which is devastating.
Yes, it is.
Because it's one of the ones that we're talking about that we wish would be thuggish.
Yeah.
Kingianum takes an exceptional amount of time to propagate. So each rhizome gets slightly bigger each year and makes a pup off the side. But not every year does that happen. So it's going to be a long time till we've got
And
this
people will have to pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, it'll be all that time thing that's spent.
It will.
Yeah.
This one, on the other hand, is quite a dainty little fellow.
Yeah.
And
so that's prattii. It will look more impressive as the season goes on. Those buds will get fatter and open.
But it's the most bizarre sort of soft mauve and almost
into this magenta-y sort of colour at the end.
Beautiful little
and it
thing.
actually flares at the end of the tips, whereas most Polygonatums, the tube just sort of opens slightly, whereas prattii actually recurves back on the end with that beautiful dark magenta colour, and it makes it really, really impressive. But right now it doesn't look as good as what it will because it's only just doing its thing.
Actually, I'd like to make just a comment in passing too. You talked about kingianum being sort of 3 metres tall. Have you got hooker eye anywhere?
I do have hooker eye, but it's only just coming through.
But it grows to probably no more than an inch tall with a surprisingly large pink flower, and the only one I know of that sits upwards.
Yeah, and it doesn't look anything like a Polygonatum whatsoever, so that wouldn't surprise me if that goes out of
it could be in another genus eventually. And I just, in passing, happened to notice that you've got the most beautiful variegated leafed one in the back here.
Yeah, there is a few variegated ones in both species and cultivar, but this is the most beautiful I have seen in a Polygonatum so far. So that's Peltatum silver stripe, and the stripe goes down the middle, whereas a lot of the other Polygonatums that are variegated, it's down the outside like a typical variegated plant. But that is extremely delicate and beautiful with that silver sheen. It mixes in quite well with the other Polygonatums.
Yeah, so fabulous plant. And that's just a taste, really, of this whole genus.
This massive genus that is on my wish list to achieve more. So I'm always open to suggestions if anyone's got extra Polygonatums that I don't have.
I might have to look through my collection.
I think we might have to do some swapping.
Yeah, good idea.
But
Jane, thank you so much for having us.
thank you for coming and visiting. It's been a great day.
Loved every second.
And of course I did.
Yeah, please.
Yes, I can't help but get engaged when I'm with a real plants person and seeing some plants that even I haven't seen, which is always an excitement.
Very exciting. And what is even more exciting, Jane, is just behind us. It is, of course, Tonkin's bulbs and perennials. So we are definitely going to come back in autumn when all your sun-loving, heat-loving bulbs are out.
Yes. And then back in the spring for all the sun-loving, heat-loving bulbs as well.
Yes, this will become a series.
Yeah, could well do.
Tonkin epics. So we will link the website below. As Jane said, they can ship anywhere within Australia with all the quarantine states as well, but can't ship internationally, unfortunately. But you'll be able to find a specialist grower in either North America or Europe. Easier there than here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a lot more on offer.
Well, I'd also like to say thank you to Jane because it's been a fabulous day up here. I've really enjoyed myself.
Now, we do post every week, so do hit subscribe if you want to watch our continuing adventures and see Jane's next episode, which could be in autumn.
Yes.
And we'll have a thumbs up. Yes.
We will have a thumbs up. So we look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye all.